second half.
Here comes Gooden gonna score the 2 and 1.
Full drive inside. Stop. Hang on a pivot. Turnaround jump shot is good.
Jordan Battle with a nice spin move. Kicks it down low. Fardaws, Big Maple with the finish.
What's up, everybody? It is early on this Labor Day morning, afternoon, whatever you want to call it, depending on where you're at. Our guest, they'll bring on in just a second. He's in a little different time zone. Daryl's in a little different time zone. I mean, it's just one of those days where we're in 3 different time zones bringing you the Straight Outta Whack podcast. Just want to remind you to check out Whack Hoops Digest. We're going to have some promotions as well. Go to the link in the description for Vegas.com. Book your trip to Whack Vegas now. Get discounts on shows, hotels, everything. Links in the description below. Let's get going on this early Monday, busy Monday, Labor Day. It's supposed to be the day off for all of us. Daryl, you are not having the day off right now.
Nope, I am on assignment. I'm covering the Inland Empire Amateur, but I got a couple hours till the leaders go out, so got time to hop in here.
All right. And with that being said, we are going to bring on our guest today, Sam Houston, the new voice of the Sam Houston Bearkats, Carlos Zimmerman. I've been wanting to get you on this podcast for a while. We had it set up for last week. Some things came up, but now that you're back home from a rainy, weather-delayed football game in College Station on Saturday night, I mean, how's it going today?
It's going good, Kyle. Thanks for having me on. I mean, yeah, as you can tell, day off, so casual Monday. But, we had a fun time in College Station. I mean, given the circumstances, having a 2-hour and 50-minute rain and lightning delay right coming out of the halftime period between the Aggies and Bearcats. But no, having a good day so far. Was
that your first, I guess, that's your first football game as the full voice, right? Like we've had Rob and so forth, Rob Hipp, who moved on to North Dakota State. Is that right? The Bison. So is that your first full game covering it by yourself, I guess?
Well, yeah, in a sense, we have kept our same color analyst as well, Brian Adams, for our football games. But yes, as the full voice of the Bearcats, that was my first game.
Nice. How did you like? Have you been to College Station? Have you been to Kyle Field before? I mean, I went there. Oh, geez, it was right after they renovated the whole thing and then closed the. I want to say it was the south end zone, but then again, I'm in Texas. I don't know what direction I'm facing because there's no mountains. So was that have you been there since they renovated it to enclose the whole stadium?
That was actually my first time at Kyle Field. My only previous experience in College Station outside of calling high school football games out there was going to Reed Arena for a basketball game when I was in high school. And
okay.
that was my first ever experience at Kyle Field. And just for those that may be wondering, when they're doing that war hymn, the press box moves. It moves like there's no tomorrow. And when I felt it, I was like, I knew it was coming, but I was like, oh, wow. They really do love their football in Bryan College Station. So, yeah, no, it was a great time.
That's awesome. Let's talk about this gig that you stepped – I don't want to say stepped into. You earned the spot that you're in. I guess what was your initial reaction when they said, Carlos, you're going to be the guy. You're going to take over for the legendary Rob Hipp?
It's definitely big shoes that I have to fill moving into this position. Rob's been, an incredible mentor to me since I got on with our radio station back in 2020, and he was incredible. But when I got the news that I was going to be doing the Bearcats for football, men's basketball, and baseball, I mean, I was ecstatic because I love our university and the culture that we have in Huntsville, and just to be a Bearcat alum that gets to be in this position, it's surreal and it's a true blessing, to be honest.
Daryl, you need to chime in here. I know you're sitting there just kind of chilling in Southern California right now, enjoying that weather, and you get to be on the golf course today, but you got to chime in here.
Yeah, Carlos, congratulations on the new gig. Welcome to our little Whack Hoops Digest media circle. What excites you the most about the Bearcat men and both Bearcat basketball teams this year as we start to look ahead to 2022-23? What are we, 64 days from opening night?
Yeah, that's close. It's getting there.
Yeah, we're getting really close to it. I mean, obviously our focus right now is football, but looking ahead to basketball, I'm very excited. I mean, we had an incredible last season. I mean, it was cool to see guys like Savion Flagg and DeMarcus Lampley step up in big ways for us. Lampley having done that his entire time as a member of the Bearcats. But looking ahead to this season, we're very excited. We're returning a lot of guys. Damon Nicholas Jr., a great sophomore guard from a great basketball high school in Duncanville here in Texas. You return Javion May, Tristan Ipe, and Jaden Ray, critical parts of this offense and defense that the Bearcats have. But then the transfer portal was really good to the Bearcat men's team this year with, trying not to botch this, Kaosi Isiagu, a transfer from UTEP, but also had experience at Kansas State. And then bringing in guys like Jacoby Bishop and Ronald Mitchell Jr. from UMass Lowell. So the transfer portal was really good to the Bearcats, and I think this is going to be a really good year for Sam Houston men's basketball. It's going to be really exciting.
What do you think about, like Daryl was asking, what do you think about the on the women's side? I mean, Faith Cook, leaves, but Raven Justice seemed like she was really high on China Allen, kind of filling that role that Faith Cook left. I mean, what have you talked to Raven at all? Like, what are your thoughts there that you've seen?
I haven't had a chance to catch up with Coach Justice. Of course, as the season gets closer, we will be having conversations on what it's looking like on the women's side. I'm really expecting the same thing again this year. I mean, I've been covering the women's team since I was doing my undergrad at Sam Houston, and it's just been good teams pumped out every single year. Yeah, is it going to be tough to replace Faith Cook? But I do think China Allen, I've seen her play at Nichols, and she'll step into that role really well. And then like the men's, you're returning a lot of ladies on the women's side as well. Sydney Kemp was one that came off the bench for the Bearcats last year, really fantastic. And then you still keep your now senior Madeline Bautista, who was a thrill for the Heroics last season. So I'm fully expecting the women's team to continue to be competitive in the Western Athletic Conference.
Sam Houston gets basically 2 years in the WAC, jump into Conference USA next year. In July. I don't want to say next year. I mean, it's close. Like, it's like 9 months away or something like that. Just from, what you've seen, what you saw last year, I mean, I know you're focused on football right now, but like what you've seen from us putting out the content and stuff about these other schools and what you know about certain schools like SFA, ACU, and so forth. This conference, I think, and Daryl will agree with me, that it's deep on both the men's and women's side of things. Like maybe a little bit more on the men's than it is on the women's with all that was lost last year from teams on the women's side. But there's a lot of depth, and this conference is going to be pretty wild in terms of basketball when November. I don't want to say when November tips off. When we get to WAC play at the end of December, like it's going to be people beating up on people. Let's put it that way. I mean, I don't know if you've seen that, what you've learned from last year. Like, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think the Western Athletic Conference is one of the deepest basketball leagues in all of NCAA Division I basketball, and I don't think that the WAC gets enough credit as it is. I mean, you have your typical juggernauts in New Mexico State and Stephen F. Austin. When we made the jump over, I knew this was going to be a huge move for basketball with how often SFA dominated in the Southland, and then I know how dominant New Mexico State has been for years in the WAC. This last year of the end of an era coming up here with all the teams leaving the WAC after this year. I think it's going to be, like I said, one of the deepest leagues. And do I think that there's a chance that the WAC gets more looks in terms of a national grand scheme of things? Like if two teams break out and have a really good year and they meet in the Western Athletic Conference Championship, do I think there's a chance for a 2 bid? Yes, I absolutely do, because I think there's just that much talent across the board from New Mexico State, Stephen F. Austin, Sam Houston, Abilene Christian. And then, we saw teams step up big that we didn't expect last year, the big one being the Seattle Redhawks. So I think this is a really deep league, and it's going to make for some really fun college basketball coming up in December.
Guys, on the men's side, do we think that the regular season champion will once again have 3-4 losses? Is that kind of the thinking?
I'm not going to lie. I absolutely think that 4 losses will be the minimum for the regular season champion. And I say that with all due respect to everybody else. But, and I'll let Carlos chime in here in just a second, but it's like teams are so deep now. It's not a superstar laden league this year like it was last year when you had Fardaws, when you had Savion Flagg, when you had Teddy Allen. We don't have those superstars. Darian Trammell, gone. Like this year, it's all about depth for these schools. And I think that was a big key in the offseason in recruiting is that they wanted to be deep. I mean, you look at Sam Houston, I think Jason Hooten said it was, 7 or 8 guys that returned from last year. Plus they get Qua Grant. They get the big guy, Ezeagu, who I've been talking to Chris Mudge. Ezeagu is going to start for Sam Houston. Like, he's going to make a huge difference for them. California Baptist, you see, they're deep. Every team is almost too deep at every position right now, and I think it's going to be I don't want to say much differently, but you saw last year we had superstars, and Utah Valley finished as the 7 seed on the men's side. And they had 21 wins on the season. Like that's crazy how difficult it is to win in this league. And who was it? Matt Feger said, on his press conference when they released the WAC conference schedule, he looks at the gauntlet of the schedule and he's like, where the hell am I going to get a win? Like, I feel like a lot of coaches kind of feel that way because it's so deep. I don't know. I'm spewing things out, but maybe you guys feel the same.
Yeah, no, I really do feel the same. There's a lot of depth, as you said, across the board. And there's really from the rosters I've been able to just glance at, there's really no one that truly just stands out as like, hey, this is the guy. I mean, I'm sure those teams know who their guys are, but at least in the case of Sam Houston, you have so many different playmakers on the team, whether it be underneath with Tristan Ipe, and I'm very excited to see what Ezeagu does here, and as well as Qua Grant. I'm really excited for those guys as well. I mean, Daryl, what do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see what this recruiting class that Rick Croy put together in Riverside puts together on the court. I'm excited to see. There's a lot of things that I'm really excited about when we look at the WAC. I want to see how the new computer seating system plays itself out. Carlos, I want to hear your take on that because, a lot of the feedback we've been getting from coaches is I want to reserve judgment until we get to March as to how this thing works. What are your thoughts on it?
So, I'm kind of in the same boat on that front. I want to see how it plays out before I'm able to really make a true judgment on it. To be frank, I haven't had a whole lot of time to be able to just dive into the schematics of it. So, yeah, I'm kind of in the boat of a lot of those coaches that like, hey, let's wait till March. Let's see how this plays out. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, back to the drawing board.
Yeah, I'm interested. And especially with where, you got a Sam Houston squad that, they're going to Oklahoma, they're going to Utah, they're at Nevada. They one of the schools that's playing at Oklahoma State too. They're playing both the Oklahoma schools, and they're having difficulties getting a home game. They're going to Missouri State, who thumped them last year down there in Johnson Coliseum. I mean, that's the thing that my issues are going to lie with that because you have a team like Sam Houston, a Utah Valley that have to go on the road to play a bunch of games because no schools want to come to either Huntsville or Orem. It's the same with Stephen F. Austin. They got to go on the road to play a lot of games. But yet you get teams like a Grand Canyon or a California Baptist who have a ton of home games. How is that going to play out? I'm still trying to decipher the whole algorithm formula there, but I don't know. Like you said, I'm trying to reserve judgment. I kind of have a feeling there's going to be some disgruntled coaches at the end of March when we get to, or not the end of March, end of February when the regular season ends. But I don't know. It'll be interesting just because of the unbalanced non-conference schedules in terms of who teams have to play. Period. That's what I feel like.
See, I've been saying this since the whole talk of the computer seating system came out. Why do we not just go double round robin like we did in high school, right? And alleviate this talk of unbalanced schedules. We're not the SEC. We're not the ACC. I don't understand the rationale behind the unbalanced scheduling.
Well, and I go back to the conference schedule. I'm not real concerned about that per se. It's the unbalance that comes in the non-conference because they're putting so much emphasis on what happens in the non-conference. And what I mean by that is, like I said, Sam Houston has to go on the road to play a bunch of Power Fives or upper mid-major schools, where another school gets a bunch of home games because they can either afford it or teams are willing to come there to play that maybe aren't quite the quad 1, quad 2 level. Looking at some of the schedules, you got one team that has 5 quad 1 opportunities on the road, whereas you get another team who has 1 quad 2 opportunity on their entire schedule. Like, it just, and I don't know if it's the mindset of a coach saying, I want to go play all these opponents, or if they're forced to because nobody wants to come play them. Like, that's where the issue lies for me with the seeding system is the non-conference schedules are going to be so unbalanced because of who wants to go where and who's okay with playing who. Like, I don't know. That's something I want to watch. I know Jason Hooten is kind of up in the air with it. He's wants a home game, but he knows that he can't schedule some cupcake to come to Huntsville because that won't help them if they win that game, and it'll be a lose-lose if they lose it, right? I mean, I don't know, Carlos. It's kind of an interesting situation.
It really is. Like I said, we're gonna obviously we can see how this plays out, but yeah, no, it's tough to bring a really good juggernaut or even just a good quad 2 opponent here to Huntsville. And even when you look at the geographics around Huntsville, you have Houston 70 miles to the south, and you've got a plethora of universities that you could get to come up there. It's a short trip. You got U of H, you got Rice, you have Texas Southern, and teams like that. You have, I was about to say SFA, but they're conference. And then you have teams up in Dallas, SMU, a UNT, a TCU. It's tough to bring those guys here to a town of about 40,000 just people in general. And that's not even including the student population. So is it going to be tough for the Bearkats when it comes down to this new system? Yeah, I think it will. But knowing Jason Hooten and the way he's been coaching, I mean, he's had the job since Bob Marlin left in 2010, and I think he's going to put together a really good season coming up, regardless of the surrounding schematics, if you will.
Speaking of Hooten, I want to ask you about the loyalty to Sam Houston. That nowadays you see a lot of coaches that they have a couple winning seasons and they take off, thinking that the grass is greener, kind of like the transfer portal in a situation. He stayed there. He's loyal to it. I mean, I talked to him, during Sam Houston week, and it was, his family loves it there, and the people make it so that he doesn't want to leave and so forth. Like, talk about that loyalty. It doesn't happen a lot in college basketball, and it's not just with him. Like, he keeps players there. They don't want to leave for greener pastures. I mean, that's why he's got 7-8 guys coming back. It's unique nowadays in college sports. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, yeah, no. Let me tell you, Jason loves this town. He loves the community. He loves the student body. He's always so proactive in getting the student body to come out to Johnson Coliseum every week, every time we have a ball game. That's how much he loves this school, this institution. And, his family is well rooted around in this area. We have a little town about 25 minutes to the northwest in Madisonville. His wife is the head coach of the volleyball team at Madisonville High. His daughter plays for the Madisonville High, so they get to stay local, and they love this town too, just from the conversations I've had with them. So it's a great experience to have him here, and you're right, you don't see this very often. Really across the board, college football, basketball, baseball, right. You don't see many coaches stick around for this long period of time while having so much success in that time period. If I'd have to dig into the books, but I don't think Coach Hooten has had anything close to a losing season since he took over back in 2010.
So the big thing is, how do they get over the hump? How do they get a tournament title and get to the NCAA tournament? That it feels like that's the one thing missing from the resume, of under Jason Hooten and Sam Houston men's basketball, is that NCAA tournament bid, after winning a conference tournament, because they've been close. They've just kind of come up short a little bit. So what do they got to do to get over the hump here? Especially, I mean, and we've already talked about it in a loaded conference, really.
I think really the key is just closing out games that you need to win. That's really been the case since I've been here, and I'm sure for other people that have been here longer than I have, that they could say the same thing. It's just closing out key games that you need to win. The one that comes to mind for me last year, I didn't call it, but was the game against Utah Valley when they came here. We had a lead with less than 10 minutes to go, and give credit to Fardaws Amac. He got that team back together, and they got back into the ball game, and then just it came down to a final shot from Dante Powers, and that was it. So it's those kind of things. It's really the little things that have really done Sam Houston in a few times. I know you when we were back in the Southland, we ran into tough Thomas Walkup led SFA teams and stuff like that. I mean, albeit there was some stuff going on beyond the scenes, but that's beside the point. You run into a good SFA team week in and week out during those years in the Southland. So really the key is closing out games that you have to win. And then in terms of when you get into the conference tournament, it really just depends on who we're playing, because I'll give credit to a lot of the other teams in the WAC. They're, like you said, it's so deep. You can't really say something bad about maybe the top 8 schools in the conference.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I was at the GCU Sam Houston game in Las Vegas, and I think it was Savion had a 3-point attempt. It was late in the second half, wide open, and he knocks those down most of the time last season. He hit front end, and I think Sam Houston lost by 3 or 4 points. But that shot would have put them ahead and maybe, clinched their spot in the semifinals against New Mexico State. So it's an interesting thing. There's just certain plays that have to be made. I remember watching the end of that Utah Valley Sam Houston game and was just shocked that Sam Houston couldn't score. It felt like it just. I don't remember where I was at. Oh, I think it was in Phoenix for Grand Canyon in Seattle or something like that, and yeah, just a shock that they couldn't score down the stretch. So that cost them too. That cost them maybe a 2 or 3 seed as well, or a share of the RAC regular season title. Interesting how that works out. GCU knows all about that when they went to Utah Tech last year. It's a wild conference, guys. It really is. Daryl, you got anything else? You just chilling in Southern California?
Yeah. Carlos, you also handle some prep football on Fridays, right? So how hard is that to juggle, a high school team and an FCS or FBS, program on a Saturday?
Ooh, let me tell you, just from this last weekend, that was something. So yes, I call Huntsville High School Hornet football as well. And Friday night, I'm there about 2.5 hours before the game, make sure all my equipment works. And then, we call that game. I think we left at about 10:30. We left Bowers at 10:30, went home, went right to sleep because at 5:30 the next morning, get up at the crack of dawn and get ready to go to Aggie Land. So yeah, it has been, just from that experience alone, it has been interesting juggling, a really, good FCS, but FBS transferring program in the Bearkats, but also a really competitive 5A Division II high school as well. They won Friday night against the 6A team that, a lot were expecting to get to beat Huntsville. So I could give you a better answer as we continue to chug along in the season. We have a 2-hour drive to a high school game this Friday in the Hill Country outside of Killeen, Waco, if you guys know where that is. And then we're going to come back the next night and get ready for Bearkats football against Northern Arizona at home. So yeah, it will be a grind. And then when we throw basketball into the mix, oh Lord, that will be an experience. But yeah, no, I'm really excited to be doing it, and it's a lot, but I'm happy to do it.
So question for you: will you travel with the basketball team on their road games to call that? Like, you're the radio guy, right? Like you're the guy, and so will you be traveling with the basketball team?
As far as I'm concerned, every single game I will have a call for it.
Nice,
every single one.
Nice. Well, that's good. You get to come to Utah. I think it's 4 different times this year.
Make it 5. We have to go to Utah Tech for football.
That's right, 5. So you got the Sam Houston football team coming to Utah Tech. You got the Bearcat men's basketball team coming to the University of Utah. I believe that's on November 17th, if I remember right, something like that. I have it on my calendar because I'm going to be there to cover it. And they got to come to Utah Valley. and they have a trip to Southern Utah and Utah Tech. So that should be fun that you get to come to Utah 5 different times this year. You get to see real mountains, Carlos, real mountains.
I will have a winter coat packed by November, and then I will get to know the state of Utah very, very well starting in October when we go for football, and then when we come to basketball. That will be fun.
Well, when you come to Salt Lake City, you're going to have to, shoot me a message about your thoughts on the Salt Lake City International Airport. I'm assuming you guys will probably fly out of Houston, which is probably, I believe it's a United hub, maybe. And if you fly United, then you'll have to tell me how you feel about the new Salt Lake City Airport when you get there. But I want to ask you, I'm coming to Huntsville on Saturday. I'm flying into Dallas Saturday morning with my sister and brother, and instead of going out line dancing with them, I decided I'm going to take a 3-hour drive from Dallas to Huntsville to, go visit Jason Hooten, Chris Mudge, those guys. And I'm wondering if they were to take me out to dinner for a steak, where is the place that they might take me in Huntsville or around that area, I should say?
Well, we do have a great steakhouse here. I haven't had the chance to try it. It's called 1836 Steakhouse. I've heard good stuff about that. But if you really want good steak, you have to drive up 45 past Madisonville to a little town called Leona. And you go to the Leona General Store. Massive steaks. Like you could go from 12 ounces all the way up to like 36-ounce steaks.
Oh.
Like massive steaks. And the flavor is fantastic. So if they're going to take you somewhere, it might be that. I'd have to talk to Jason, of course. But, it's fantastic. So if you want good steak, that's the place to be in Southeast Texas.
Are you expecting a big crowd for that NAU game? I know it's the first home game of the season on Saturday night. What are you – I know there's been some talk about maybe some marketing stuff to get more fans there. What are you kind of expecting on Saturday night?
Yeah, I'm hoping for a good crowd. It's a home opener. It's Saturday night. It's not 12 o'clock in the afternoon with the sun beating down on you. I've had many games I've gone to just as a fan. Last year against UIW in the playoffs, that was a scorching day. It was a fun game, but it was a scorching day. So to have the sun kind of already gone at that point when we kick off at 6 o'clock our time, I think that will drum up some fans as well. And, this is going to be the first game for the incoming freshmen to get to go out and enjoy. And you face really an interesting Northern Arizona squad. When we went to Flagstaff last year, it was really back and forth early on, and then Sam Houston would pull away down the stretch. But so I think it's going to be a really good game. I'm excited to see what we do, especially coming off of a tough loss to Texas A&M. But I think it'll be a good crowd. I'm not rightfully sure if it'll be sold out, but if it is, good deal. Yeah. Pack that place out for your first home game of the year.
Absolutely. Daryl, you got anything else? I can't see. Are you shaking your head, Daryl?
No, I'm good, Kyle.
All right. Everybody, that is Carlos Zimmerman. The Z-Man is what he goes by. Carlos, I got one last question here now that we have our Wild Wild Whack 2.0 fantasy football draft tonight. You are the number one pick in that because you figured that New Mexico State and Nevada would not score a lot of points on week 0 down in Las Cruces. And I think the weather had a lot to do with that. I'm not going to lie. The weather delay played a lot into that. But you got to give a hint to what your number one pick tonight is going to be.
If you really want a hint, it's one of the top running backs in all of the NFL. I'll tell you that right now. Well,
there's a lot of those. So, I mean, you got to specify maybe some colors that maybe the team wears or something.
One of our Sam Houston's former accent colors is blue. And so I will tell you that much. It's a running back from a blue team. I will tell you that.
Interesting. Well, there you have it for everybody that's in the Wild Wild Whack 2.0 league. He's giving a little hint on who he's drafting number one. Carlos, the Z-Man Zimmerman. Follow him on Twitter at Zimmerman_PXP for all your Sam Houston coverage. Voice of the Bearkats. Congratulations on the new gig. And thanks for joining us on the Straight Outta Whack podcast, my man.
Kyle, Daryl, thank you for having me. Yeah, really excited to be in this position, and can't wait for once football wraps up. Can't wait for an incredible WAC hoop season.
Well, don't count your eggs. Don't. What's the word? Don't hatch your eggs too quickly. We want to see some good football the rest of the way. I mean, after that wild night last night between LSU and Florida State, what more can you ask? Follow that up with, the crazy wild Florida-Utah game, ECU, the Appalachian State, North Carolina game. I mean, geez, guys. Oh, an SFA on Saturday night coming back in the second half. Oh, we're excited for basketball, but football season has just started, and it's awesome, guys. So everybody, enjoy the rest of your Labor Day. Remember, book your trip to Las Vegas for WAC Vegas. Link in the description. You get discounts on hotels, on shows, on everything Las Vegas. So be sure to click on that and make sure you get some good discounts as you book your trip to Las Vegas. Again, for Daryl and Carlos Zimmerman, enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Straight Outta WAC podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and other podcasting platforms. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Remember to follow us on Twitter at WAC Hoops Digest and Facebook under WAC Hoops Digest for all your WAC Hoops news and information.